Hi, everyone. This is Sarah Otto with the Wisconsin Telecommunicator Emergency Response Task Force, which I'm the state coordinator. We like to do monthly training videos, and this month I just wanted to give a brief snapshot of an actual TERT deployment that we've had in the past, one that I responded to myself back when I was a baby task force member. Deployments can be vastly different experiences depending on the situation, the environment, the person, a gazillion other factors. And aside from being thrown out of my comfort zone a bit, I lucked out on this deployment because it was pretty smooth sailing. I wasn't in a disaster zone. I was close enough to home where I could drive back and forth every day. Food was catered in. I worked indoors. I didn't need to lug my huge go bag full of camping equipment with me. So I had it made on this one. Still, I wanted to share my experience and give you an idea of how the whole deployment process might work. So I'm guessing many of you remember former Wisconsin State Governor Scott Walker's budget repair bill of 2011 that limited public employee collective bargaining. Um, for those who aren't really aware of the whole situation, it ended up causing between about 70,000 to 100,000 people to gather at the Capitol building for sit-ins, protests, demonstrations. The heaviest number of protesters was in late February through early March of 2011, but it continued all the way through to June of that year. So it was a pretty significant situation. The safety of a crowd that size obviously can't easily be maintained by local jurisdictions alone. So there were makeshift hydration stations and medical tents set up by volunteer organizations. But there was still the ongoing need for hundreds of mutual aid officers, firefighters, and dispatchers as well during this situation. So it's slightly out of TERT's wheelhouse because it's not really a natural disaster sort of thing. However, it was an event that compromised the operations of all the local PSAPs. So TERT did end up fulfilling the request for mutual aid dispatchers. So in this particular one, WI-TERT ended up sending 4 regional coordinators, 14 team members, and 4 COMELs from 11 different agencies over a period of about a week to assist with everything. I personally spent my shifts working in the exterior command post, which was in the upstairs portion of a nearby fire station. I got a crash course in Dane County's CAD system and monitored transmissions for ambulance requests from officers working inside the Capitol building. So it was a pretty cool experience to see a unified command system in action and multi-agency incident command. I took quite a few pictures while I was there, but I'll spare you and only share a few with you at this time. So on the bottom left is a picture that I took of one of the camera views we were monitoring that shows the crowd gathered outside the Capitol building. In the center, you can see some of the crowd in the interior rotunda area of the Capitol building. And then on the right-hand side, you can see they had mattresses and makeshift beds set up kind of all over the place throughout the Capitol because tons of protesters were actually camping out there 24/7. These 3 pictures all show the interior setup of the EOC inside the Capitol building. So you can kind of see how everybody has their positions labeled and things like that. And then these 2 pictures on the left-hand side shows the position that I was working at in the exterior command post. And then some of the camera views that we were actively monitoring for the situation. I wasn't in WI-TERT leadership at the time, so I can't really speak much about how the deployment process was initially instigated. However, as a task force member, what ended up happening is the Southeast Regional Coordinator at the time reached out to my manager at the time with a request. My manager took a look at all the staffing levels and then reached out to me to see if I was also willing to cover a few shifts. I did end up accepting, and she responded to the Southeast Regional Coordinator and got all of the final details for me. Preparation for the deployment was super easy. I was told food and beverages would be provided, and I didn't need to bring anything but my ID and my headset. Um, I wasn't really sure what to expect still, so I brought along a notebook, writing utensils, some protein bars and bottled water, my cell phone charger, Tylenol. I brought along my e-sponder login information and some notes that I had taken and using the program. For anyone not familiar with e-sponder, it's the former version of WebEOC. Let's see here. I was asked to email the Southeast Regional Coordinator on a daily basis with my mileage, travel time, length of shift, and general duties so that the information could be used to compile an after-action report. The fire administration building that I was working out of was easy enough to find, but the parking situation was a little tricky. Um, as you can imagine, the Capitol was pretty chaotic at the time. The lot was very small and a lot of the vehicles were parked in. So I was asked to actually leave the keys in my vehicle so it could be easily moved if need be. The lot wasn't secure per se, but luckily I didn't have any problems while I was there. It felt strange to leave the keys in the car, but it ended up being all right. On the very first day, I entered the front of the building and was escorted up to the command post by fire administration personnel. However, afterwards, I was provided with a passcode to use to enter and exit the building more freely. The command post was located in a series of rooms on the top floor of that fire department. And they had the different rooms divided by sections like operations, planning, logistics, and things like that. So again, it was a really neat experience to see the incident command system act in action versus just reading about it in FEMA trainings. The room that I was working in was occupied by representatives from a number of different agencies, including like Madison PD, the Capitol PD, Dane County Sheriff, Department of Justice, among others. They had 3 dispatch positions set up with triple monitors and wireless headsets. One was set up to monitor the interior Capitol radio transmissions, another to monitor the exterior Capitol radio transmissions, which were mostly platoons of special event teams and traffic patrolling the square. And then there was a third position set up for the team leader, which during this deployment was always was always a regional coordinator, since only one TERT dispatcher was requested per shift instead of a typical team of 3 or more. Sorry about that slice there. I had a little bit of a coughing fit with all this back to school stuff circulating around. So anyway, the TERT team leader that was there was primarily responsible for making sure everything was running smoothly when with the deployment process and providing breaks and support when needed. The exterior radio position was mostly staffed by a Dane County Sheriff dispatcher due to their advanced knowledge of the area and typical agency operations. And the position that I sat at was responsible for monitoring interior Capitol transmissions, so all the radio traffic inside the Capitol building. So that included listening to a separate interior dispatcher, over 300 officers. A lot of what I heard was door counts of people entering and exiting the building in order to make sure that they weren't over legal capacity. If a request was made for emergency medical services, it was my job to either notify one of the 2 paramedic teams that were inside the Capitol building on a separate radio frequency, or have the Dane County dispatcher CAD the request for a transport unit. I had access to maps of the building and the surrounding area in order to direct these services to the right location. To be perfectly honest, it sounds like a lot, but I really only had like 2 to 3 radio transmissions that I needed to respond to per shift. So I expected to be thrown into chaos there, but it actually ran very smoothly, and I was just kind of there to help out in case things ended up getting worse. On the second day that I was there, I was told that there might not be a Dane County dispatcher available to work for the full day. So I got a crash course in their CAD system, which is ADSI, which was completely foreign to me because we used Pro Phoenix for ours. But by the end of the day, I was able to put units on and off duty, track locations, send messages to squads, place them on calls for service. However, when it came to actually CADing calls for service, I would have to call Dane County's dispatch center and have them do it. Since they said it was way too complicated to give someone a one-day crash course in that situation. Some other of miscellaneous duties I had while working in the command post included answering a few phone calls and transferring them to the correct departments, like different threat complaints to the Department of Justice, staffing issues within the command post and things like that. I would also monitor camera views of the Capitol Square, the interior Capitol, and the underground tunnels that they have there for anything suspicious, letting people in and out of the building, so that sort of thing. On the first day I was there, I got a great tour of the command post that I was working in and also the interior branch command post and other areas of the Capitol building, like the mutual aid debriefing room, the underground tunnels, the basement police department. All of that was really cool to see. And it was also interesting to see just the hordes of people that were there at the time. Afterwards, I was asked to submit an after action report to my agency supervisors, which I also shared with WI-TERT leadership. And I'm really glad I kept that information compiled because months later, I was interviewed about the experience for the Mavis, Wisconsin newsletter. And now, well over 10 years later, I had to reference it to really refresh my memory about the whole situation before recording this video. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If anyone has any further questions about it, please feel to reach out. My contact information is shared here as well as that of our other regional coordinators and steering committee. We also love to hear any feedback about any other trainings you'd like to see in the future, or any interest you might have in joining the task force. We can also be reached on our Facebook page. So we would love to hear from you. Thanks for taking the time to view this video and have a great day. Hope you don't get this bug that's going around. Bye.